muzzle, face mask muzzle. Going to my grandma's house, shut in, shut up, cover your mouth. Soap opera dynasty bullshit. COVID-19 1884, COVID-19 1884, COVID-19 1884, COVID-19 1884.
Okay, that is COVID-19 84 by Chief Crow and the Flat Earthworms. Thank you for joining. It is March the 18th, 2022. Second live stream of the day. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and mirror this. We are also mirrored on the Conspiratainment Radio Network. So if you just want the audio stream to save on bandwidth, go to Conspiratainment. Live. Anyway, let's see who's on the phone on the chat room here. I want to make sure everyone got the notices. I sent out text notices and newsletter notifications via the Patreon. Sent out the Penguin signal. Clockwork 113, The Missing, SpongeBob 77, Frank Mirror, Tricky Who, P Trippa 103. Thanks for all the support. Those of you who've been purchasing art, NFTs. In fact, if you haven't seen the new NFTs, and this is why you should get them through me. Take a look at the screen. You can see an example. These are tokenized digital artworks. So you may be a naysayer about the whole phenomenon, but whatever. The point of it is you can become the owner of an original work of digital art, and it's no less valid than a work of art that you have on your wall, except it can't be burned. I mean, it could be, I guess, deleted. It could be eventually, once they start tightening up control over memes. But I think it's important to get into the NFT sphere now with our memes and not let it be dominated by just trite avatars and celebrity, overpriced emojis, basically. So we're putting real art into these things, and I put my favorite crisis actors and other things. So we're working on a number of things. But if you want to get into NFTs, a great way to get onboarded is to go to timosmond.win. And the reason why is that you can purchase an NFT for $1, whatever it is, and you get the link. So if you've never bought one before, if you buy one through my shop, you get a link that opens up a wallet with whatever method you choose to open with, and it's just a way of storing these things perpetually. So it is in fact an asset. So here's an example of a Penguinati in black and white NFT tokenized digital art, and the ones that I'm selling on my site are unique, one of one, and they're all on the Wax blockchain, although I am open to OpenSeas and others as well. So anyway, just a heads up, I want to say thanks. This is what has brought our channel back on. I've been off for the last few days, but I managed to fill in a few gaps in the budget with art sales for the most part. Digital art. I'm having to go fourth industrial revolution on everyone here. Having to go straight digital, no more analog art, no more paintings for the time being, because it takes too much time and it's just problematic in a few different ways. But this does not conflict. Digital art does not. All right, let me see who's in the... Okay, good. Andrew says, I got my text. Excellent. Joined by Coyote, Smoke and Mirror, Thirst for Truth, Linda Curtis, Cubstar. Camilla says, good vibes. Yep, good vibes are a vibe here. People use that expression now, it's a vibe. Elon Musk's wife said, don't worry, when we have communism, it's not going to be forced labor, because that's not a vibe. Infinite Plane Radio.
Hi, it's Restless Bear.
Hey, how you doing, Restless Bear?
Oh no, I've been drinking. I'm junkies. I needed someone to junk dial, and I wanted to say hi.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, I saw you in chat. You were asking when I was going live. Did you catch earlier the conversation we had about the Marilyn Manson scandal controversy with Evan Wood?
I saw about 5 minutes of it, unfortunately. I was busy.
Okay, I'll catch you up on it then for people who weren't here earlier today. But no, I'm happy to have you call in. It's a Friday night, and anybody who wants to drunk and dial, you're welcome to. 833-311-1984.
I need dating advice. Can you help me?
Don't date people over the internet. I would say that's the easiest way to meet a psychopath, a serial killer, a creep. Stick with the meatverse over the metaverse. That would be my only advice. I'm not someone to ask for advice
Okay.
either, but if that was it, because I think, yeah, I think it's open season, really. People are getting groped in the metaverse. But yeah, meatverse
I
is being
I
dominated by the metaversers, and it's getting faker every day.
I started dating a normie, and I don't know if that's a terrible, terrible idea or not.
I recommend it, actually. I think it's a bad idea to only date people you agree with. Like flat earthers want to only meet up with flat earthers, and it's like, why alienate yourself? Why be the person that can't blend in? I think we should be more tolerant, so especially if you're into fringe ideas. So, no, I don't think you should exclude someone just because they think the world's a ball or whatever silly
Okay.
idea they have. What do you think about global warming, by the way, while it's still legal to criticize it?
I mean, I don't know. I also don't care. I mean, like the planet, as far as they know, like according to their own propaganda, like the planet's always had weather issues and climate change. So like, who the fuck knows anything?
My point exactly, and that's a great starting point. Um, in my view, it's a Democrat hoax because they specifically use it to demonize the right wing and the people who use fossil fuel because they want to move into this new green world order. I think it's just communism with a disguise. Is all I think. But anyway, global warming's
I'm sure
33, and we've all grown up believing in this thing. And I'm just saying this is like a replacement myth for the wrath of God and the flood myth.
I'm sure it has an agenda. Like they're not just, talking about it for fun or because they care. Like the last of the reasons is that they care.
Well,
you
okay, does
know.
your normie, your normie, that's your word. Does your normie boyfriend care about this type of thing, global warming? Does he care about your
I
apathy
don't
on
know.
it?
That hasn't come up, but he called the January 6th. He called that like an assault on an American institution, and
Okay,
he's a lawyer too. So like he's all about the law and how like, what the people entering the Capitol did was illegal or whatever.
okay. See, that's
What
interesting. See,
he's brainwashed. He's massively brainwashed.
but he's got to be smart, right? And this tells you, you can be the
Yeah.
smartest person, in the room. It doesn't matter. You can fall for a liar, and the television is a liar. And my guess is that he's so busy doing law, he didn't bother to do his due diligence and look closely at the staged riot of 1/6, which is actually a comedy if you watch it
Oh, this
closely
is
enough.
this is 100%. Like, I don't think he's put any time, effort into anything. Like, I tried telling him about how like Joe Biden was a pedophile, and he gave he gave me the excuse of like, oh, he's from a different generation.
Oh wow.
So he
Okay.
doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about.
Now, have you brought up the CGI Joe thing? That maybe he's just a construct. I
I have
mean,
not. I have not.
see, that's
I
good.
didn't want to ruin all opportunity for me
No,
because
that's great. You got to know
I actually
how
do
far.
really like him.
Yeah, you got to know how far you can go. And for some people, they to me, I approach it with a little bit of sensitivity or at least awareness of their level of situational awareness. And most people believe the screen at point blank. And I just know that's their base assumption. That's their starting point. So I think we're kind of lucky that we have a behind the curtain view on a lot of things. And I just don't impose that on others. I let them bask in their blissful ignorance.
Yeah, yeah, and I honestly like want the same for him. Like if he thinks I'm just crazy and like misinformed, like that's all I want from him is just to like allow me to be misinformed and crazy and like not care. 'Cause like there's so much else to my personality and his personality and whatever. Like it shouldn't matter. Like these are at the end of the day not truly important topics
Yeah,
to
exactly. Like
actual life.
when I say normie, I say it kind of jokingly because what exactly?
Right.
And I wrote this newsletter yesterday in defense of outrageous conspiracy theorists, and I'm just thinking that what you're actually looking at with conspiracy theorists are um, critical consumers of information, people who are very hypercritical of all the info, as we should be. We're used to being lied to, and so we're not conspiracy theorists. We're just media analysts who happen to be the conspiracy literati. We know more about the conspiracies inside and out than others, but it doesn't mean that we're unhinged or liable to go run into the Capitol dressed up like Vikings.
Yeah, yeah. And I told him, I loosely told him about you guys and how, like, we're, one thing you say and I 1,000,000% agree with is, like, we're allowed to be wrong. Like, if you think we're wrong, just let us be wrong. Like, who cares? Like, why is that such an end of the world thing? Like, just let us be fucking wrong if we're wrong. 'Cause, like, I told him I wasn't exactly convinced with the moon landing and all that. And, like, he laughed and whatever. And I'm like, whatever, just let me be wrong. Like, fuck it.
Well, look, my view on that point is if you burn the wrong answers, you burn the books you don't agree with, then you don't have a comparison. So people memorize the right answers without knowing why those answers are right. You need the wrong to know what the right is, or you can't ban it the way they want to ban it. So they're trying to create ignorance, a form of contrived perfectionism that's really not grounded in reality. And if the truth is going to be revealed, it's going to be the truth. It doesn't matter what you think or what he thinks. It's going to be what it is. And if the moon landing was just a really bad science fiction movie, that's going to come out eventually, hopefully. But anyway, yeah, these are things that we don't have enough information to be. And that's the other side too. They assume they have enough information, and I'm just saying maybe they don't.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they don't have the high ground on this whole thing.
No, they have no idea what they're talking about most of the time. Like they're completely brainwashed. But I have a question for you. Actually, I just remembered I had a question from the other day. So, out of all of your theories and stuff, what's like some of the ones or like one that you have the least amount of confidence in? I was wondering.
Ooh, good question. The least amount of confidence in. Wow. Okay, so um, it's kind of funny you asked that because the deeper we go into this, the more I lose confidence in things that I once held as not even fakeable. Like I only recently, I mean, within the last few years, learned about the hyper-realistic deepfake masks that have been employed in politics and in movies for decades. So I'll have to think. I'll have to get back to you on that one. I'm going to get back to you on that one. It's not that
Okay.
I'm overconfident in any of these, but I want to give you a really good, well thought out answer.
Yeah, yeah. I'm just curious because you always sound like super confident and stuff. Sometimes, I mean, sometimes there's things that come up that where you're like, well, I don't know, or I'm it's just a possibility or whatever. But like, I'm just curious, like, to what extent you're not
Okay,
confident in certain
right.
things.
And that's an important point because there is that fallacy of alleging certainty. And where some it's just a,
Right.
and so I never want to do that, and I have to make sure like I'm not saying that I know that the earth is flat. I'm just saying that I don't have enough information to know unequivocally that it is as described. And so that's a gray area, a bit of agnosticism. But what I am saying is that the people who believe we're on a big ball as represented, their belief is not founded on facts. They've taken a leap of faith. And that leap of faith is their trust in what came through the screen. So we're dealing with people who are they're taking a leap of faith tantamount to like a religious leap of faith. I would say that the atheist believing that Neil Armstrong walked on the moon is as big a leap as a Christian believing that Jesus walked on water. It's a miracle for the modern mind, and that's what we're dealing with. A lot of superstitious people who've been
I know,
given.
right? Like,
Mhm.
they think it's just fact. Like, that makes sense to them. Like, of course, a guy was up there walking around and playing fucking golf.
Now, more recently, um,
Like, that makes sense to them.
more recently though, how many times have we pointed out on this channel that everything we're seeing in the news has some sort of precedent in recent mass entertainment? We're being inundated with stuff about and then it just happens to happen in the news. And today, the Daily Beast had to admit that it's really prescient and shockingly prescient that Ukraine's president was in a TV show called Servant of the People on Netflix, that we're basically watching him live right now, that it's a fantasy come to life. And they're saying it's rare that life is following art like this. And I'm saying, no, this is the standard operating procedure for the media. It's always been this way.
No, yeah, like that's so fucked up. And like you can easily think like because you're in America that America is like so fucked up and crazy, but like there's other countries that are just as crazy, if not crazier with this shit. Like,
Yeah,
come
hey, they're all
on.
participating in the International Space Station. And have you been following the drama above, which is basically the space station coming apart at its seams?
Yeah, I saw that headline about like the world's first space hostage.
Yeah, that's right. The world's first
It's just
space
super
hostage, where
funny.
they're going to leave some astronauts stranded up there. And also with the Russians not participating, it doesn't get its monthly booster. And if it doesn't get its monthly booster from a resupply module,
Oh
it will
no.
fall. So that they're saying that, yeah, we could have a 500-ton structure falling, hopefully on Seattle, but falling because Russia's backing out.
You have to get your booster, Tim. You have to.
Yeah, isn't that some interesting little terminology? You got the boosters, and I do think that they have made enough correlations that they have in recent years. They've correlated inner space, as in your bloodstream, with outer space, and they've introduced the whole space junk agenda along line with the vax agenda, and they use the same terminology. It's fascinating.
Yeah, this space junk thing is crazy and out of control. It's like every single day, like there's some new space junk or asteroid headline. Did you see Wonka World's illustration about about space junk, by the way? I think it was in like the Black Wrench op
I'll take a look
Discord. I
now. I
can't
haven't
remember.
seen it yet, but I'll take a look.
It's from like maybe a week ago. It was hilarious.
Yeah, this now the space junk thing for people who didn't
Highly
know.
recommended.
Space junk wasn't a thing until recently. It was hypothetical. They had no examples they could draw from. But then all of a sudden, last year, the 42nd anniversary of Skylab falling, as I predicted in the Metascript book, suddenly space junk's a thing. And they've had numerous incidents of having to cancel spacewalks. They've had to dodge space junk. China said that Musk's almost knocked them down. And I think they said that 40 CubeSats from Musk's Starlink fell from the sky. Like this is all new stuff. And it all comes out along with movies like Don't Look Up and Moonfall. I mean, what are the odds that the Netflix
Yeah.
reality mimics or precedes the news reality?
No, there's definitely a space junk agenda going on because, like, it's just been crazy and, like, nonstop this past, like, year or so. And, like, you're definitely onto something with the helmets and stuff.
Oh, yes, that's true too. I've been saying for some time that, yeah, they're going to mandate helmets for space junk, and you're not going to be able to say no because it's the same experts. They'll have Fauci come out in some dorky helmet, and then everyone's going to do it. That's how it's going to work. And now, yeah, it's actually becoming a thing, and they'll say it's mandatory because of parts of the space station are falling or something. Who knows what they're going to come up with? But you know, people will go with it, and you'll be walking around without a helmet, and some lady will stop. She'll be masked and helmeted, and she'll say, your helmet protects me. Put on your helmet." Like, you'll have helmet Karens. Like that's how controlled people are.
Yeah. Yeah. God forbid you do something to injure yourself. Like, come on. It's just crazy.
Oh no, risk is not
I
allowed. Risk is not allowed in this new safe space society. And that's another interesting thing to notice as well. The safe spaces that they introduced on universities were put there to protect snowflakes from right wingers and right wing memes. Safe spaces. And now we have safe
mhm.
space, or rather social distancing. And now that social distancing has continued, should you socially distance from your right wing conspiracy theorist friends? So they took safe spaces into social distancing, and now you have state mandated or sometimes mandated distancing. It's just the same thing, but they're getting close to mandating safe spaces. And I think that's what the actual space age is about. I don't think it's about going to some faraway paradise. I think it's about humanity being turned into some kind of hive minded creature. You know, it's pretty. I mean, that's what the mask and the helmet and all that stuff. I think we're looking like drones at this point.
I think so. Like, I think a lot of it, like, they talk so much about like identity and blah 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 and like gender and labeling yourself, but I think so much of it is about erasing identity and making us all fucking gray and shit. But yeah, I posted this in the Discord. I don't know if you saw it, but like my company that like I worked for hired like a senior VP of senior global VP of what was it, like diversity, equity, uh something, inclusion and belonging. And I'm like, give me a fucking break. This bitch is like in fucking Australia and probably makes like 6 figures a year because she works for this like massive company that owns a lot of other smaller companies, basically telling people how to not hurt other people's feelings. Well, mainly like that, those other people whose feelings you're trying not to hurt totals like maybe five. There's like 5 people out of 1,000 you don't want to hurt their fucking feelings. So like,
Yeah,
let's pay somebody 6 figures
that's an interesting point here. You'll
to tell
see
people.
you'll see contrived quotas and contrived diversity as a cover, as smokescreen for the actual agenda of destroying individual opinions. That's what it
Yes,
really is. So they'll
yes.
use groups as smokescreens. You'll see different identity groups being brought up, and I don't think it's about protecting people or snowflakes. It's about destroying the individual.
No, they don't give a
Look,
fuck. Why would they give a fuck?
I've had hundreds of videos pulled for for hurting somebody's feelings, and I'm like, did somebody actually complain and say my feelings have been hurt? Like, to me, that's an accusation. You injured me, right? So legally, I should be able to confront that snowflake and say, hey, what part of my video hurt your feelings, so I can remove it? But they don't give you that. It's always an anonymous court, and they judge you as guilty of having committed a hate crime against some anonymous snowflake out there that shouldn't have been on my channel in the first place.
Yeah, yeah, no, like none of those people are watching your shows, like honestly, like if they did, I don't know how they got here, seriously, like, you're not like one of the top 5 names in like controversial opinions that I'm aware of. I could be wrong. I
No,
could be wrong.
I would like to think
But
I'd like to think that
yeah,
there's like a boiler room somewhere with a bunch of cubicles and a bunch of snowflakes with a box of Kleenex just listening to live streams like this. And whenever something just really
that's
triggers
probably
them,
true.
yeah, like, okay, we got one, flag it.
Well, I mean, honestly, I think to an extent that's what the ACLU does, and like, other organizations similar to that. Like, their job is just to hunt. It's not like actual problems that are like a big deal and in people's faces. Like, they have to like hunt and dig for things that might offend somebody somewhere. And meanwhile, it's one dude who's like 25% offended, and like, who gives a fuck?
Human shields. And they used to just use generic things like the poor. And now it's a little more diversified when they have their pick of victims to choose from. And the biggest victim of all today happens to be the environment. The collectivist communist Borg has chosen to use the environment as the ultimate victim, the Earth. And that's where all of this uh, global warming stuff is now coming up again. And they're really bringing this up that, um, and I'm watching a show called Demilitarized Zone, DMZ, on HBO, and it's about this future after Civil War in America and everything shut down. And the weird thing about it is they're acting like it's a good thing that we're not driving anymore, that our infrastructure's down, and the leader, one of the leaders, happens to look like Hillary Clinton. I mean, the programming is so deep. They want, and the thing is, the people in the demilitarized zone are trying to fight off being reintegrated into America. So it's all mainstream. You can see the direction things are going.
Hey, I like it when you're somewhat conservative or whatever you want to call it side comes out, by the way. I know you probably don't call yourself conservative, but your non-liberal side.
Well, the conservative wing, if there was one, was destroyed by Donald Trump. He destroyed the last remnants of any sort of
Yeah.
limited government conservatism, but they're still there. The values are still there. The people who know why we care about free speech and why we care about the Second Amendment, yeah, we're still here. It's just that there's no party that represents us, and we know the clown show. Well, at least and you probably know the clown show doesn't represent us anymore. But yeah, there are. I think conservative values versus liberal would be best described in the book by Thomas Sowell, an economist, called, I think it's called the Conflict of Visions. And he said the conservative view is the constrained view, whereas the liberal is the more unconstrained. And it has to do with utopianism versus being grounded in reality. And now compare this meatverse, metaverse. And I think the metaverse is a utopian thing, and it's totally divorced from what we would call conservative values. And that's where it's going. That's where they're going, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, it's craziness. But I mean that brings a good question. Like where do you see this all going? Like, even 2 years from now, like where do you think things are even gonna be? Can you even predict? Because like things are batshit crazy.
Yes, exactly, exactly. I mean, it's kind of funny. Even if the flat earthers had figured out a way to get away, they would have been locked down before they made it to the exits. But I'm
Yeah.
thinking long term. I have a plan with Infinite Plane Media, decades long, and I plan to build not an alternative media, because all alternative media is part of the brainwashed beast matrix media. I'm creating, or what we're creating here, is a network of critical consumers of information and free thinkers. So it's a philosophical movement that I don't think they can really um, marginalize as hate speech or something. So I just see this as a future, and that if enough smart people, enough insightful people continue to do what we're doing, it doesn't really matter what happens with the rest. I really have a very optimistic view.
Yeah, well, it's impressive you're still able to last on YouTube at least a little bit, sometimes. Like you're not constantly swatted. You can get a good couple weeks in every now and then. So, I mean, that's impressive.
Yeah, it's hard to get to 1,000, and when I get close to 1,000, I jump to another channel because they know, because that's when you get monetized. So that's when they send their
Mhm.
bots to comb through your channels and they find something that you said wrong. And but no, I think the future is in a true counterculture, because what they're trying to suggest here, the mass media says anybody who's doing any sort of conspiracy conjecture is a conspiracist, and they associate you with hate speech and racism and Nazis, and they say flat earthers are all Nazis, all this crazy stuff. And I'm like, no, I'm going to go ahead and diverge from that perspective and say, no, what we're doing is it's conspiratainment, not conspire racism. If anything, we're just entertained by this fire hose of intel that never stops. And there's nothing wrong with being entertained by information. I mean, we're more philosophical than activists here.
Honestly, some of it is so fucking hilarious. Like Owen Benjamin has this thing where he calls like the CIA the comedy injection agency because like there's always like this underlying joke bullshit that's going on where it's like, some article will be written by some, joke name, or there's like just some over the top joke thing going on, and like that almost seems to be real, where it's like a comedy injection agency, where I think sometimes they're just doing shit to amuse themselves because they think it's funny. Like
I like that.
they may not even have like a hardcore, serious, evil mastermind goal for oh, sorry, my cat just jumped on my stomach for, for every single little thing. But like, they're just trying to amuse themselves at the end of the day. Like I try to amuse myself at the end of the day. So like they probably are trying to amuse themselves to an extent
Well, a
too.
couple examples here for people who are wondering, like, okay, Maggie the Block. You look at this health minister telling
Yeah.
us don't do sex, wear a mask in the shower, and don't go visit your
Nobody
grandparents.
wants to have sex with women.
Yeah, well, she's literally, her name is Maggie the Block, and imagine a wrestler with that name.
I know.
You're like, Maggie the Block looks like, and this is not being rude, but imagine Jabba the Hutt in a wig, and it's just literally a costume. But I wouldn't even comment on someone's appearance if they weren't telling me how to run my life,
Right.
and if they were not
Right.
obviously on the face of it pure hypocrites. And the other ones were
No,
no
you
better.
look at yes, yes, all these fucking like health authorities. You have that bitch out in California that looks fucking dead.
But you're going to tell
You
me, but
have
look,
like
you can't tell me that Maggie the Block isn't from the comedy injection agency. Who named her Maggie the Block?
exactly, exactly. And you have that Rachel, whatever the fuck, who's like, in charge of the fucking country's health or whatever. Like, Oh, for fuck's sake! Like to some extent, I think they're just having fun. Like they're just laughing at all of us.
That's what I said about the 1/6 thing. The 1/6 thing, if you dig deep enough, you'll find it's a comedy. You have Roseanne Boyland is carrying a flag that says "Don't tread on me," and what happens to her? She gets trampled to death by a bunch of
Hmm.
MAGAs. Like that's deep comedy, but it's only there if you're reading it without a sense of having been shocked by the information. When you know it's a psyop, it becomes easy, and these things are replete with jokes, and it's always the names. There's so many characters on the world stage where their names tell you their function.
Yes, yes. I can't think of any examples, but yes, there's tons. There's tons for
My
sure.
favorite
Like,
right now is Musk Grimes, and I'm like their baby. I think it's Yucky. I don't know, but Musk Grimes, like these names, because
yeah.
but their names are strange. But Musk comes out of a book, The Mars: A Technical Tale. So you reverse these
Hmm.
names, and they're often sometimes the names just have a double entendre, but sometimes they actually do have a basis where he's actually named after a guy who formed the first Mars colony. And yeah, so when I'm so critical about the news media that I'm seeing it as like Shakespeare. Like some of the jokes, the
Yeah,
inside jokes, it's Shakespeare.
that's not a coincidence. Like, I'm sorry, but that's not a fucking coincidence. Like, no.
No, and we're always uncovering things, and like I said, even the Daily Beast today had to point out how Netflix is, quote, shockingly prescient with their movie about the the president of Ukraine. I mean, how can they say it's rare? You know, this is so common right now. They're saying rarely has life so startlingly imitated art. What do you mean, rarely? When has it not been straight out of Netflix? If you want to know what's going to happen next year, watch Netflix. I mean, I hate to make people watch that stuff, but you know,
No.
you get the inside scoop. You'll know what's going to happen.
No, like, of course, the fucking president of fucking Ukraine has a fucking Netflix bullshit on right now. A fucking course. Like, what? In 2022, how could you expect anything fucking different? Like, that's exactly how it is right now. Like, it's impossible for him not to have his own Netflix show. Like, seriously.
Well,
But
people will
that
say,
reminds me,
go ahead. No, people
I
will say
want
it's a
you to watch,
coincidence,
I
but
want it's not a coincidence. Those people are retards. But that reminds me, I want you to watch the movie Southland Tales and tell me what you think.
Southland Tales. Okay, I'm writing that down.
That's the one from the Donnie Darko director. I can't remember if he wrote it or if he just directed it, but it's like it's a long ass movie, but it's like really bad, and it's like it doesn't make sense like why you would even make this bullshit. Like there had to have been an agenda behind it, so that's why I'm like bringing it up. And there's like, you know, a little bit of predictive programming in it here and there, but I'm really curious to get like your thoughts on it, because you know, people like you and you like always see more stuff in it than I do. I'm not always great at like picking up on everything,
Yeah,
but
that's why
um
I like to put things out there in the Discord server because people are always, you know, collectively there's 1,000 eyes in that place. We're just taking things apart. And yeah, I'll definitely look
yeah.
because what I'm finding is that whenever you find a movie that is replete with predictive programming, the director is usually involved in something similar. And I call them metascripters because they're obviously writing for the world stage. Roland Emmerich, you know, the movie Moonfall, that guy did Independence Day. He did another movie about an
Mm.
ark to survive global warming. And so you can see who the meta scripters are. They're always the ones who are, they have the insight on something usually.
Yeah, that guy is clearly employed or has an agenda on his own, but yeah, like it just doesn't make sense for this movie Southland Tales to exist for any kind of artistic reason or anything like that. So it's and it's very different from Donnie Darko. So
I'll take a
definitely
look. I'll
check
take
it
a
out
look.
if you can.
Now I know Jake Gyllenhaal's in another movie that comes out this year called The Division, which is based on a Tom Clancy, who's another one of these meta scripters. But yeah, I'll take a look because that Donnie Darko movie, not only did it have a lot of 9/11 predictive programming, but it also has a lot of 2020 stuff with not only Corona, with all of its Corona symbolism, but also Trump, Biden, and even the whole QAnon narrative with the pedo ring being exposed in the movie. That and even the burning of the money. that's referenced in the Graham Greene tale that Drew Barrymore's character talks about. That whole
Mm.
movie, it really does reference 2020 in many ways. Very prescient movie.
Weird. Yeah, I only saw it the one time back when it first came out, so I'll have to watch it again and see what you really mean, because I can't think of off the top of my head anything that might relate to Biden or
I'll
anything.
tell you a
So
couple of things. One,
I'll have to look it up.
it took place in '88 when Biden was running for president. And there's a few
Mm.
scenes in there, like, okay, you got Donnie, and he's wearing the sweatshirt that says Triumph. And he's looking at the screen, and the football player's 17. So you have Donnie Triumph, 17, and this is leading up to the scene where the guy's house gets exposed. They burn the house down, and it exposes the child trafficking ring. But
Yeah.
The Donnie references are Donald Trump references, and I'll go through this in detail. And in addition to the stuff inside the movie, the release date 119 for a movie about stuff falling from the sky. That's a number we frequently see with that particular agenda attached to it. So I'll have to do a breakdown of that movie very soon as well. I'll look at all of that director's work. In fact, you said his name was I have it here.
Richard something I want to say, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'll pull it up. Awesome, awesome. Okay, so let's see what else we have here. Let me go through my. Okay, so today, yeah, we were talking about this Marilyn Manson thing, and I think you'll find this all interesting if you missed earlier, because basically we're seeing another example of, just like with this Ukrainian president, an example of a situation in real life that was mirrored in the movies. And in this case, it's Dolores from Westworld having lived that experience with Marilyn Manson, and it ties into this present controversy.
Yeah, like I don't trust anybody that would date Marilyn Manson. Like, sorry, but I don't. Like, you don't scream high quality person to me if you date that guy. So sorry,
Well, they'll call that a blame the victim misogynistic response. They'll say it's
Oh well.
but but I mean, I think there is a point to be made for being upfront about things. And if I have a I mean, I think he's pretty upfront. I think you could have ascertained some things, but I don't know. I don't know. But anyway, I happen to
Yeah,
think
like
that
I actually am I've always been like a big Nine Inch Nails fan, and like he had Marilyn Manson like play on some songs like way back in the day or whatever, and they had like a falling out, him and Trent Reznor, and like he wrote like the song Starfuckers about him, because like I guess Marilyn Manson and Trent Reznor's opinion was just trying to be famous and like do whatever he could to be famous, stuff like that. Not that Trent Reznor is anyone necessarily to be believed, because like either he's brainwashed or he's like part of the mainstream media brainwashing machine. Either way, but yeah, just that's my extent of my knowledge about Marilyn Manson, is that at least in Trent Reznor's opinion, he's like a star fucker type, desperate to be famous.
fascinating, fascinating. Well, I took a deep dive into Manson's work ever since he started hanging out with Kanye West. And this all ties together. That's
Mm,
what's so fascinating about it, is that
which makes no sense.
it doesn't make sense until, I mean, it doesn't make sense when you look at it on the face of it, but I've been looking at from this perspective of the bigger story. Last year, 2021, I was pointing out the similarities to 1969, this pattern extending from 1968 similarities to 2020. And so I think that this is right on time. And I think that Manson is a callback to Charles Manson and Helter Skelter, and I think that's what we're getting at here. And I also think there is a lot of symbolism within this whole Marilyn Manson character that ties these things together. But I think his association there is very peculiar, to say in the least. But that's one of the things we've been looking at lately, and it's he's one of these world stagers, is what I would call him.
Did you see that movie, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood? Because that had like a lot to do with Manson.
Oh no, I'll have to check it out because I just saw him say something about Hollywood in one of these articles I'm reading about. I guess an album called Hollywood, but no, I haven't seen it. What's it about?
That's the one with Brad Pitt and Leonardo DiCaprio, as a matter of fact. Basically set in like, Hollywood in the 70s, and I think in the end, spoiler alert, everyone, change the channel. But I think in the end, I honestly missed the ending of it. But I think in the end, like Brad Pitt goes in and kills Charles Manson or kills, his little women that were, gonna do the Tate murders and all that. But yeah, like at one point they go, at least Brad Pitt, the Brad Pitt character, goes and visits the Manson family farm or whatever. But yeah, it wasn't a great movie. It's a Quentin Tarantino movie. Not a great movie, super long, super boring, super dull. I never even finished it. But yeah, it may be worth checking out for your research purposes.
Right, exactly. And that's why I appreciate the spoilers because nobody has enough time to watch all this stuff. It's so toxic. So what we do is we distill it.
Exactly.
But yeah, I'll take a look at that one. And for those who are into the QAnon thing, this is tripping me out because the QAnoners have this belief that JFK was basically Jesus and that JFK Jr. is going to come back and save them. Well, Marilyn Manson put out a video that was delayed because of its timing. It was a video where he played the role of JFK getting assassinated. And he said, and this is in 1999, he said, the script was about the idea that there were two Christs, Christ and then JFK. And now Hollywood is waiting for the third savior. Well, this video about JFK being Christ coming back was delayed because right after the video came out, JFK Jr. crashed. So Manson knew this Q script decades ago, and I find that to be very peculiar.
Weird. Yeah, I have no idea why the QAnon thing is still a thing. I thought for sure after the election it would have died off. Like, I don't know, like is it real? Is it really still a thing? Or is it just like bullshit liars pretending it's still a thing?
It has to be that. There's no way it's still a thing. And I've been saying this for a couple of years. It's like, there's no way. Save the children. It's been how many years now? Now it's save the disaffected teenagers. And all these people who are supposed to come back and save us are aging.
That's funny.
Like, are we waiting until JFK's on a walker or JFK Jr. Before he comes back to save us?
No, and I find it shocking if there's anybody that believes Trump is JFK. Like, come the fuck on. Like, come on. Like, please tell me you're not any real person anywhere.
Yeah, I've seen this. It's like this phenomenon of Elvis sightings, but it's been reintroduced, and it's JFK Jr. sightings.
Yeah.
And it's like every Trump rally, it's somebody else. And it really reached peak insanity on the anniversary of JFK's death. I guess they assumed he's going to go to the place where he was shot again, and they thought he was going to show up. And so that was peak insanity for me, but I noticed the Kennedy family isn't stopping them. We got RFK Jr. pushing the anti-vax thing. He didn't say, hey guys, no Dad Kennedy is going to come back to save you. No, they encourage it.
Yeah, I never thought about that. Or, yeah, I never took note of that, how, like, they haven't really, at least blatantly in my face, commented on any of that. So that's interesting.
Oh yeah, if somebody said that one of my dead relatives was going to come back and save the Democrats or something, I'd be like, hey guys, I appreciate your enthusiasm staying out here in the rain and everything, but he's not coming back. But it's to me, this can't be real. This has got to be some kind of comedy. Was it comedy injection agency creation?
Yeah, and it just, I mean, for the longest time, it just pissed me off because it makes people like me look bad. Because, like, at one point I did support Trump, like, 'cause at least he was different, for a while. I don't support him anymore for obvious reasons, and I haven't for a long time for obvious reasons, but...
Oh, that's probably the point.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, yeah.
Look, the Q story, I believe, it has been placed here to smear anybody who is for nationalism. I think that's what it ultimately comes down to. And that's why they've managed to conflate conspiracy theories with the insurrectionist thing, which was, they're saying that anybody who doesn't trust the news is now somehow a domestic terrorist threat. But yeah, I think that it's become something. Maybe at one point it was a useful idea for people to rally around, this idea of Trump and this intelligence connection, but it devolved pretty rapidly at this point, and there's nothing left to me unless, I mean, what are they waiting for? JFK is not getting any younger.
Yeah, no, I think I don't know if he was part of it all along or if he just became part of it at one point. But yeah, no, yeah. I mean, he rolled over and died after the election a little too conveniently, and then there's all the vax salesman stuff, and
Yes, he's the Vax
yeah,
father.
like
Yeah,
no,
yeah, that's true too.
yeah, like I even like made the meme of him with like the line like vax salesman of the year, like he won that award because like seriously, like come on, like he was such a cheerleader for the vaccine. He probably owns stock in it, just like everybody else, like Fauci, like Gates, like whoever.
Well, it's
It's
funny how people think that
it's
he's rogue. Look,
unfortunate,
I mean, it's nice to hold out the hope that somebody's gone rogue and they're going to fight the system or they're going to somehow.
right?
But no, I realized after Parkland that, and their excuse, the QAnoners would tell me, they would say, no, the reason why he's not calling out a psyop as a psyop, even though he says he's against the media or he's going to expose the media as fraudulent, he won't do it because he's playing 4D chess. So they always make excuses
Mhm.
for his lack of action. And to me, there's a point where it sounds like Stockholm Syndrome. It sounds like you're just making excuses for your psychological abuser, Trump, who's making a bunch of false promises he can never fulfill. I mean, the wall, um, Hillary being locked up in a cage. Like, none of the stuff that we voted for ever happened.
Right. Yeah. And meanwhile, like he's old. He's been old. Like even during his entire presidency, he was old. Like I don't think he's 40 chess in 2022 kind of material. Like, but yeah, no, he totally backed down on the whole locker up thing, and portions of the wall were built, fine, whatever. But like, I mean, the wall was never super important to me, honestly.
Yeah,
But
well, me
yeah, I
neither.
mean,
But,
it would have been nice to have seen her locked up.
well, something else too, though. He is culpable in that 1/6 thing. Not that it was a real thing. And he won't call it out as fake because he's part of the program. That's my whole point here, I think, is that he's part of
Right.
the program because you can look at the evidence and find out how staged that whole thing was. But the thing is, he invited his people there, and his son especially threw out some cute dog whistles. And they suggested it's going to be a riot. It's going to be wild, were their words. So they were trying to make it look, I think, like there was a credible attempt at an insurrection to disrupt the proceedings and stop the certification by Mike Pence. So I kind of think that Trump was a Judas goat who sent a bunch of well-intentioned people into a bad situation in order to smear any remaining remnants of conservatism, nationalists, or anybody who really doesn't hate America.
Yeah, well, if it were real at all, like, or if he were real at all, he would have defended those people or a lot of those people, like, the entire time. Like, and at first I was like, oh, well, maybe he's, being quiet because he doesn't want to get impeached or whatever so he can run again. But, like, bullshit. Like, either you're real or you're fucking not. He's obviously fucking not. Like, yeah, he rolled over and died quietly, just as he was scripted to. And yeah, like the country obviously never meant anything to him.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. And also something to point out too, though, when you look into this idea of people being world stage characters, scripted or whatever, Trump is as much a comedy injection agency creation as any other character. Donald Trump's character has a precedent in Back to the Future. He's quite literally Biff. No, is it Biff Tannen? Biff Tanner, whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah, he's Biff. He's the bad guy in Back to the Future. He also exists in a few other places. You can see him throughout culture where we've been prepared for the Trump. So I don't think he's a real person in that sense. I think he's someone that we were prepared for, just like we were prepared for COVID, just like we've been prepared for space junk falling, just like Ukrainians were
true.
prepared for the situation there with that Netflix movie that he's the servant of. What was that movie he was in? The Ukraine,
I don't know.
the comedian actor slash president. I mean, what a joke.
I mean, like it's just clown world. It's clown world 24/7. Like, here's the question though: do you think we're ever gonna come out of clown world, or is it just gonna be clown world for at least our lifetime?
Right. I put the number 311 1984 really to point out that it's 1984 and that it started on 311, but I like to say that it's always been 1984 and it always will be. And I think it's
Mhm.
always been the Globe Theater. It's always been Clown World. And I think the best you can do is form a an oasis of people who aren't necessarily in it, so you're on the same sheet. Like I like to look at the chat and us here as we're in the stands and we're watching the world stage activities. We're not really being playing tug of war on the stage, and I try to stay there, somewhat objective. And I think the more of us, or the more like-minded, the more likely we can remain out of it. But generally, I mean, 2020 taught me we can't opt out. If they say put helmets on, we're going to have to do it. So, yeah, I think Clown World wins. I mean, that's slightly pessimistic, but what does that even mean? You know, it means that we have to deal with a lot of absurdities. At least they're not.
And
I don't know. I mean, nobody's
it
dropping dead in the
certainly seems
streets like
like it.
Wuhan. I mean, everything they show us is an
Yeah.
exaggeration.
Yeah, no, I mean it certainly seems like they're always gonna win, but like at the end of the day, like it for most of us, like it doesn't truly affect our day-to-day life unless, you were one of the people that was like profoundly affected by like the mask mandates or the vaccine mandates and you had to like lose your job or whatever. That's fucked up. Obviously gas prices are super high and pissing people off and affecting people, but like for by and large, it doesn't affect your day-to-day life as long as you have the right people in your life, locally.
Yeah, exactly, and that's the thing too. The monolith the monolithic cult, the monolithic media that runs this place, they weaponize your neighbors. That's why, like right after 3/11, right after the pandemic was declared, people were calling 911 to snitch on their neighbors for coughing. They had to. They were shutting down 911 number operator stations because they couldn't handle the call volume, and so that showed me right there that we can ignore the news, you can remain uninformed about it, but the masses are instantly triggerable, and they can be turned into a bunch of fascists and tyrants in a heartbeat. And the first time I was yelled at for not wearing a mask, I was just on a sidewalk, and that's when I realized the power of this thing. It's like invasion of the body snatchers. So uh, the best thing you can do is have some level of insulation. At least I was able to go to my Discord server and say, "Hey guys, you seen this too?" And they're like, "Yeah, yeah, people have lost it."
Yeah, no, that's crazy. Yeah, and full blown yes to the whole pod people thing. Like in my town, like maybe you go to the grocery store, maybe 20-30% of people are in masks. But like once Fauci said you should wear a mask for sure, like I was the only unmasked person at the grocery store just because Fauci said so. And it was just like, what the fuck? Like I thought my town was so much better than this. I thought like like I don't live in or I didn't at the time live in like a hyper liberal city. Like it didn't make sense. So it was just like craziness to see that I was literally like one of the only sane people left in my town.
It gives you an idea.
But
It gives you an
but
idea of how
yeah.
isolated we
Yeah.
actually are because before the internet,
Yeah.
I didn't have anybody I could talk to about synchronicities that would really know what I was talking about. I had to reach. And now there's a chat room full of people who have had similar experiences. So that's one of the nice things about the internet, one of the benefits to this interconnectivity. Um, but really quick here, COVID comes along and everybody forgot about radical Islam. And I remember pointing this out early because they said it's an infidel plague. Go back to the Holy Land. So they just didn't care about us anymore. So it's like COVID cured radical Islam. And then a couple of years later,
Yeah.
Putin comes along and he cures COVID. So my question is, what do you think is going to cure Putin? Climate change,
Well, it's gotta
UFOs?
be the space. Yeah, it's gotta be the space junk or, aliens. I've been waiting on fake aliens for so long, like, 'cause I just think when they finally bring the fake aliens out, it's gonna be hilarious. Like, I can't wait. Like, I say that now, not knowing what fully they're gonna do about it to make our lives shittier. But like, I can't wait to see the fake aliens.
Okay, that's interesting you bring that up and you think it might be hilarious because maybe the reason they don't want to bring it out yet is they don't want that kind of reaction. The last thing they want to do is have something planned for generations and then have you not take it seriously. And this is probably one of the reasons
Yeah.
why the MSM has such hate for the flat earthers because they don't believe in the alien agenda. They're constantly calling it out as some kind of ruse. And so, yeah, I think that it'd be problematic if you started laughing when everyone else is screaming.
Well, let me ask you this. Speaking of flat Earth, like, how did it become, in your opinion, all of a sudden, like, kind of a popular topic that people were talking about? Like, because, like, I went most of my life not hearing anything about it. And then, just in the last, handful of years, people started thinking about it. And then you started seeing, like, all these YouTube videos. So, like, in your opinion, like, what brought that on initially?
What brought it on? I thought about this long and hard because you have a few people to take credit for it, like Mark DeBay, Eric Sargent, all those people. But the Flat Earth Society has always been there, and the attention has kind of gone up and down, but it never attempted for mainstream credibility. It never tried to reach out until recently, and recently it popped up because all conspiracies popped up with YouTube came the decentralization of media and video streaming and file sharing, and people suddenly started uploading stuff. So it wasn't just flat Earth, it's Bigfoot, it's chemtrails. Every single conspiracy blew up commensurately. So flat Earth isn't actually special, but some people think it just seems to have. Well, I guess it's a more outrageous one, but I think it's an organic thing that mostly arose as a result of the internet. But I think the reason why it got so much special attention is probably because it's the most outrageous thing you could think of. It's the most it cancels so many other things. That's another thing too, and it's like an instant credibility destroyer. So yeah, I think it really
Yeah.
they tried to shut it down and it kind of had a blowback effect is what happened. They tried too hard to silence it.
Well, we're all taught from a young age that it's something that's supposed to be ridiculed. Like, can you believe these retards back in the day thought the Earth was flat? Like, oh my God, like, that's weird. That's weird that that's like one of the ideas in school that young children are taught to interpret as like beyond ridiculous. When like how many other beyond ridiculous topics are young children taught to think about like that in school?
Yeah,
You know?
yeah. Why point this out of all things when what's the likelihood you would even encounter it in your day-to-day life? And so it just seemed like they're
Yeah.
giving it way too much attention, and that makes it look a little suspect. And then you combine that with the actual evidence. And now, not evidence for flat Earth necessarily, but evidence against the established model. And just starting with the moon hoax, or rather the moon landing. If you doubt the moon landing, you have all the more reason to question, well, why would they fake it? I never had an answer. Why would you fake the moon landing? To trick the Russians? Well, the most likely thing to me is you'd fake the moon landing if you're lying about what's beyond. And that's so they could be hiding any number of things. They could be hiding anything on a globe, or maybe even the fact that it's not one. But my point is, the question's been raised, and it opened a can of worms. And there are so many more questions that you can laugh at the flat Earth topic all you want, but there's no way you can repair the damage that we've done to the ISS in the last few years, or any of the space, anything in the space program that has been looked at critically. It's auto debunking.
Yeah, no, like I've seen a lot of videos from the ISS and like I'm sorry, but I'm not convinced, Like it's just not the most convincing footage I've ever seen. So sorry. Sorry, NASA. Sorry.
Yeah, they tried, and the thing is, and even the guy that worked with Stanley Kubrick, Douglas Trumbull, he was a special effects guru, recently died, but he said that his special effects from 50 years ago look better than present day CGI, as impressive as it is. And he's right
Oh,
about that.
really?
Yeah, he called that out, and I'm thinking, hmm. And I actually think that this is one of the reasons why the ISS has to go, because they can't rely on green screens and harnesses when Hollywood has moved beyond that. So they're no longer competitive visually with mainstream movies. And so I think this is a very sticky point for them. They can't let movies look realer than what they do. So I think they have to bring it down so they can improve special effects.
Have you been following it? Like, what's the deal with that actress that was supposed to go up to the ISS to film the movie from Russia?
Okay, that's interesting. Last summer, the Russians were racing the Americans in a space race, just like 1969, but it was in 2021. And the movie was called The Challenge, which I thought was an interesting title given, the Challenger, but
Hmm.
it's called The Challenge, and they beat Tom. So when I saw that, it told me the Russians are going to beat America in the space race because Tom Cruise is our champion. He's a hero in the movies, action hero, and the Russians beat him.
Right.
So I think that's a clever bit of subtext there. And he is going to the space station soon to film a movie. His Top Gun sequel is just about to be released. So, but yeah, I think the whole thing was they went up there in order to um, basically beat America, and they kind of did. And so if you look what's followed since then, it looks like for the most part the Russians are the ones who are instigating the split in the space station. And their media released a video that showed the Russian module detaching itself from the American module and leaving them, which would cause America's module to fall.
I mean, fuck it, you know?
Well, I don't want them to knock it down
I
before
don't
Tom
even
Cruise
know.
goes up there, and I mean, I hope he gets to do that
Right,
at least.
true.
But anyway, hey,
So that lady already went up. That's done. She filmed her scene or whatever.
yeah, they filmed it in October, about the time that William Shatner was
Oh, I
going to
didn't know
space.
that.
Yep, they sneaked in there, they filmed
Oh.
it, and they didn't make a big deal about it, and we haven't seen the footage yet, but yeah, they've already accomplished that thing, and I think it was all just again sort of a PR stunt. They were repeating the space race thing from 1969 all over again and making it clear that America is not going to win the space race. And that's kind of what's happening now. Russia is, I think, going to assert control, and I think it's all about space communism or space capitalism. Can the Earth handle trillionaires? And the answer is no. If you believe the communists, the environmentalists, the globalists, no, we cannot sustain billionaires, much less trillionaires. So that's where this Musk versus Russia contention comes in. And if you haven't been following Elon Musk's Twitter account, he has been challenging Putin to a duel. Like it's clown world stuff, but they've put him on the stage in that
Yeah.
context.
Yeah, I saw that. Like, I don't know what to fucking think about him. Like, I refuse to believe he's like a normal person on any level. But like, I saw where he tweeted like I support the current thing meme or whatever. Like, it's a little too convenient that he keeps tweeting this shit that makes it seem like he's on a reasonable side. Like, sorry, billionaire bro, I don't believe you're on a reasonable side, Mr. Grimes ex-husband or whatever the fuck. Like, no.
Now, are you familiar with this situation with their new baby or 3D printed animatronic?
Yeah.
I mean, I can't figure it out. So
Yeah.
Grimes had a baby bump in December. Now she has a baby, and they say it came from a surrogate. Then we find out the surrogate is Chelsea Manning, the intelligence analyst. How did that all happen?
Of course it is. Of course. Of fucking course. Like, no, like, I'm sorry. Like, I'm never gonna fall for Elon Musk's bullshit. And like, what sucks too is like a lot of guys, because I have, I've been single. I've been like trying to date, and like a lot of guys like almost idolize Elon Musk, these days. And I'm just like, ooh, no, thank you to those people because like, no, he's not a real dude by any means.
Oh, they believe
And
he's a savior.
yeah,
They see, look, the Pope is the vicar of God. He's like the highest ranking human. He's the person who God
right.
appoints as his number one man. And if you want to be saved, you go to his organization and you pray, and he's got that big obelisk thing. Well, I'm saying that Musk is the modern Pope. He's the savior because the Pope will save you from the fallen world and sin. Musk will save you from the polluted world and global warming. And as this world burns or as it's condemned and judged, you can get into his obelisk and you can fly to the space heaven. You can be saved because he has the keys to heaven. Musk is basically a pope. And that book I mentioned, it's called Mars, A Technical Tale that Werner von Braun wrote, where he talked about an Elon that would be a dictator on Mars.
Hmm.
He said it would be structured like Rome's papacy. That's why we call him Pope Elon, affectionately.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm sorry, but I think he's full of shit, and it's way too much of a coincidence that he was mentioned in that Mars book by Werner von Braun. Like, no, I'm sorry, that's too much for me. So,
Yeah,
sorry,
yeah.
NASA, sorry again. I'm
He
not buying it.
he crossed the line with me with credibility when he bought Gene Wilder's house. And he talked about his obsession with
Right.
Willy Wonka. Then he started a candy company. He toyed with the idea it was going to be called Boring Candy because he has a tunneling company called Boring. So now he's doing Hyperloop, underground tunneling. And like, isn't that what Willy Wonka did? He had an underground tunnel that went to a candy
Yeah.
factory, and then he buys Gene Wilder's house. So he's intentionally identified himself with both Willy Wonka and Iron Man. So can you take an Iron Man Willy Wonka that seriously? And then of course you throw in the whole
No.
Mars program, and yeah, if you believe any of that, you're in the metaverse already. You don't have to wear an Oculus to be in the metaverse. You just got to be a true believer.
It's all such bullshit. Like, what do you think about Pete Davidson bullshit? Like, he's such a fucking goober weirdo, and like, obviously, he's part of it all. Like, I don't think that he's not, but like,
Okay,
I
yeah,
don't
two
know.
things on him.
What do you have to say about him?
Okay, one, he's connected to the Kardashians now, and this is all psyop
Right.
entertainment complex. Kardashians connected to OJ, and then you have Kanye West going a little OJ. And the first thing about him that strikes me is this guy's not legit. He's a world stage character going through some kind of bizarre public spectacle. Is that one, he's on SNL, and two, his father died
Mhm.
on 9/11. Like, what are the odds?
Right.
So if you believe the 9/11
Yeah, and
psyop, but knowing what I know at least about it, it's like, okay, he's connected to this industry, the mind war industry, and the fact that they were about to send him into space, I think he just canceled. But that just shows you that he's behind the curtain. You got the world stage behind the curtain, and he's a few levels deep.
yeah, and like the first time I ever even realized he existed, I was watching like some roast, like one of those Comedy Central roasts, and like all the jokes about him were about like his dad dying on 9/11, like that's his identity. Like, oh, my dad died on 9/11. It's like, well, really? Did he? Did he though? So it's just like, it's like he was introduced to the world stage as like, hey, everybody, my dad died on 9/11. You want to talk about it? Like,
Yeah, and then
okay, whatever.
yeah, it's like
So,
what
I
what
mean, allegedly, if we're supposed to believe the complete, mainstream media story, thousands of people's dads died on 9/11. Why is this guy important or special?
right. Good question. And then take into account too, he was recently killed in a Kanye West music video. And prior to that, he was on SNL when Elon Musk hosted, where he goes on Mars and he takes his helmet off and his head blows up. So you already have him dying publicly twice, once in space and then once at Kanye's hands. So, taking these things together with, he just had the name Kim branded, like burned into his flesh, branded on his chest. So, my theory is that Kanye West is going to go OJ on the situation, and we're going to see him ride off into the
Mm.
sunset on a white horse. And that's, I mean, the Bronco, the white Bronco. It's a very symbolic thing there.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. It's interesting. I definitely think Kanye plays a big part because there's a lot of like right wing like Gen Z people who like worship Kanye and stuff, and I just think that's a little too convenient. And like, I'm sorry, like no man that's married to Kim Kardashian, I know he's not anymore or whatever, allegedly, who the fuck knows. But like no guy that was married to her is a friend to the true white right wing, sorry, I didn't mean to say white, the right wing conservative movement of like real people. Like, no, no, like, sorry, Kim Kardashian does not factor into that whatsoever. So talk about someone else.
Yeah, it's interesting how they pick these, and it's because he did that photo op where I think he went up into Trump Tower into the in Trump's
Yeah.
office, that's where Devil's Advocate was filmed. Al Pacino as the devil, that was his office, Trump's
Mhm.
office. So he goes up to the devil's office, and Trump dyes his hair blonde. He comes down for this photo op, and ever since then, the right wing has kind of thought he was one of theirs or something. And I don't know. I don't really follow him all that much, other than I just think that he's too close to the Kardashian psyop entertainment complex. So you have the fake shootings, you have the fake terror attacks, then you have these drama psychological operations, and the Kardashians are a good case study on this because they are like their whole life has just been a part of this thing. Like for example, in 2020, Kim froze her social media. Why? Because of conspiracy theories. And I'm thinking that they're going to start doing internet lockdowns over memes so that they can clamp down. Just like they locked down the world because of an errant virus, they're going to do the same thing for memes, for ideas. And I think that they're all part of this agenda and they lead the way. The celebrities always lead the way. And look at me, I'm going to freeze my social media until you guys do something. Now, it didn't catch on. Nobody cared when Kim Kardashian froze her social media, but they had hoped that it would have, shocked the world. It didn't actually work.
Yeah, 'cause I mean, is it still frozen? I doubt it. You know, and it's not like all conspiracy stop. Like, but that's
Right.
the thing. Like, no, sorry, Kanye is not like one of us. Like, sorry, but like, what was cool is like after Trump won his first election, he did like stop his concert or whatever, and was saying stuff like, it's a new world, Barack Obama, it's a new world, Hillary Clinton, and started talking about how Jay-Z had killers or whatever, and so I get how like that's promising, but no, like it's still like
Yeah, take a look at
you
this.
got to use your brain.
Last August, at the Donde 1 release event, which was strangely timed with a hurricane. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff in this thing, but the main thing is he's had himself set on fire. So he did this Phoenix ritual, the Burning Man. Now, the significance there is this was
Mm,
on the date that they usually do the Burning Man festivals, but they canceled because of COVID. So you had 33 Burning Man festivals, 86 to 2019. And in 86 and 2019, you had an actual Burning Man. In both those years, spaced 33 years apart, 33-year-olds incinerated themselves in front of the White House. So this is a ritual. And there are many more like it, and we can point to these things, Bohemian Grove and others. But I'm saying Kanye West set himself on fire on that date. And we know the significance of dates to the astrotheological cult that runs the world. So, no, he is a high level Illuminati asset, whatever he is. I don't think he's unconscious of his role. And what's more, the Donde 2 event happens to be on the day of Pluto return. Uh, that Pluto return date, no way that's a coincidence. And of course, the producer of his Donde album is Future, who goes by Pluto. And so this is just too deep, too arcane, too esoteric. I don't think he's a pawn. I don't know how, it's hard to say, but yeah, I don't think these are characters that have a whole lot of wriggle room. I think they're kind of like ordered around, like they have directors or something.
oh yeah, definitely. I believe that. And it's super weird to me how like you seem to be the only person that talks about that guy that like lit himself on fire in front of the White House. It's like, why wasn't that a huge story at the time? Like if people truly hate Trump and, blah blah blah, like, why didn't they harp on that forever? Like, but they didn't. So I don't know, it's just weird. Like why doesn't anyone talk about that or act like that was a thing?
Right, and the guy was wearing a USA t-shirt. So it's USA Burning.
Right.
And so this happened in 2019. And when it happened, I was watching the scene and I saw a bus pass in front of Fox News's camera, and the bus number was 113. So looking at it from the perspective of nothing in media at this level is accidental. I see 113 USA Burning. And this is when I started looking at the election day. And this is when I started thinking, okay, look, November the 3rd, and that happens to be the date that the new tower that replaced the Twin Towers was opened. That date has had extreme significance since then, especially with the contested election. And so USA Burning was the theme. And yeah, this burning man in front of the White House should have been a bigger story. But, you know, every May they do something at the obelisk there, at the Washington Monument. They call it Catharsis at the Mall, where they do a miniature Burning Man every year, and nobody talks about that. But there's a lot of weird
Oh.
stuff going on in DC.
No, I didn't know about that. Tell me more about that.
Catharsis at the mall every May, and they probably canceled it for COVID, but Catharsis at the Mall is an annual event where they burn an effigy in front of the Washington Monument, and they say it's a vigil for healing. And their symbol is an obelisk on fire with and here's an image of it. If you look at the screen, it's basically a mini Burning Man festival, and you have a statue of a goddess overlooking it. So I think it's Isis and Osiris worship, and of course, that Washington Monument is an obelisk. It's a symbol of Osiris, the earth god they worship. And on the 50th anniversary of Apollo 11, they projected the Saturn V rocket onto the side of this thing and recreated that launch. But yeah, if you want to go participate in some hardcore pagan festival and you can't afford to get into the Bohemian Grove and you're not into the whole burner thing, go to the DC thing and you can participate in your ball worship there.
Ball worship.
Yeah, that's
Sorry, I'm still a little drunk.
though I think that this is all word magic. I think a lot of the words they use advisedly, and I don't think it's a coincidence that the Earth is a ball and the Earth God's name is, Baal, Baal, and
Right.
his symbol is the obelisk. And what they've done is they've dressed up the rockets and the space program with all the same symbolism. So, the Saturn V rocket. Well, Saturn on an obelisk. These are consistent symbols. These are repeated things. And in the last year, you probably noticed this
Mhm.
too. They've made a big deal about the shape of Jeff Bezos' rocket. It's like nobody was openly calling it out until recently, but that's always been the symbol.
Don't get me started.
Dr. Evil's dong rocket. And it's not a coincidence that
Yeah.
Bezos looks just like Dr. Evil. And Dr. Evil literally has a rocket that looks just like that.
No, it's the most penis-looking rocket I've ever seen. And then, like, yeah, those people who are making, like, a vagina rocket in retaliation. Like,
Vulva
what the
rocket.
fuck?
Yeah, yeah, I
What the
saw that.
fuck are we?
I thought it was a joke. I thought it was a joke. These feminists in Germany have designed a rocket to combat. And look, they say it's a sexist symbol. It's like, no, it's aerodynamic or something. But uh, no,
Yeah, okay.
but yeah, there's a group in Germany that are creating a rocket that looks like the female counterpart. But they're kind of missing the point. They are right in the sense. They are right in a sense. But the truth is, when you look at the actual symbolism of this religion that runs the world, the goddess is the night sky. That's the womb of Isis. So the earth god, sky goddess. So you wouldn't need a rocket shaped like that. They're just a little I don't know, off the mark. But yeah, I thought it was a bad joke. I thought it was Babylon Bee or something, but no, it's real.
Yeah, no, no, no. Yeah, no, they obviously have some kind of weird fertility magic bullshit going on with all the penis rockets and now the vulva rockets. Like, come on. Like, what the fuck?
Okay,
Like,
WBF
seriously.
Aeronautics. They need 500,000 signatures. But yeah, it's a real thing. Look, this is not a joke. It's designed to restore gender equality in space. So,
How do they even know that aliens are genderist? Like, come on. Like,
yeah,
for fuck's
now
sake.
speaking of aliens, because you brought up how in the future they want us all to be grays. And they call the
Right.
aliens grays. And if you look at the
Yes.
Darwinian story, you've got man on one end, then you've got the grays on the other. If you look at aliens as a very advanced, maybe humans in the future. And so what they do is they constantly show
Mm.
man as somewhere between ape and alien. And we're trying to go that direction, but our lower human nature is bringing us back down. So war, competition, all that stuff. And so I believe that they have introduced aliens as just a replacement for angels, which are these androgynous, perfected beings that aren't subject to the pulls of the flesh or whatever. So yeah, I think aliens are just a replacement for angels. It's a superstition for the atheists to believe in, and they do believe them to be. If they
Mm.
believe in them, they obviously believe that they're superior, or at least more advanced, whatever that means. But yeah, the gray is the ideal for the future. de-individualized.
That's
You're wearing glasses at all times. You got a mask over your face. You're all wearing PPE. You're basically like in an alien spacesuit.
that's interesting. Do you remember that South Park episode with the Goobacks from the future? Like they all pretty much looked the same. They were all bald and wearing the same outfits and looked pretty much the same, the males and females.
Yeah, yeah, I recall that whole, and I think that's what they're aiming for. I think what they're doing is they're using the illusion of being behind diversity to destroy diversity for pure uniformity,
Mhm.
and that's what I saw. I mean, to me, the mask has always just been a fascist fashion statement, and that's the only utility it has. The dirty sock in your face, you can pretend it's going to protect you from something, but really it's just an overt display of your agreement with the new order. And and I think that
Yeah.
when you take away the person's face, well, you're taking away a great deal of communication. A lot of nonverbal communication passes through the face and microexpressions, and they're erasing that for all of the metaversers, the newborns, and so they're going to be mostly acclimated to emoji faces and faces on the screen. The raw faces, the raw that all that material, all that learning time spent looking at faces is being replaced. And I think it's intentional because the face is what makes you an individual. And I think they want us all to look, like ants or something.
That's sad. That's so sad. Yeah, I don't know what the fuck kind of universe our kids and youth are growing up into, like
If you want an
with all the
idea, watch
masks and stuff.
Netflix. I would say 100 is a good example of
Ugh.
where we're probably going. Netflix will tell you at least what their ideals are.
Mm. Mm. I don't know. I do like some stuff on Netflix. I try not to watch too much because I think it's the tool of the devil, of course.
Yeah, it is. It is, and it is an influence operation in progress. I look at Netflix as part of the Psywar, and so I watch it very analytically, not necessarily for entertainment, but I am entertained by it. But every time I watch, I'm never disappointed because I'm constantly finding, wait, this is a consistent. See, what we've been doing is we've been noticing predictive programming in advance instead of looking back. Like most people look at 9/11 predictive
Mhm.
programming after having lived through it thinking it was real. So I like this real time predictive programming analysis. And Netflix happens, do you know that the co-founder, first CEO of Netflix is the nephew of Edward Bernays, the founder of
Yeah.
mass mind control through media, public relations? Not a coincidence.
Yeah, no, fuck that guy for sure. And like honestly, Tim, like I don't know if you've heard me say this before, mention this before, but like I work in advertising. I've worked in marketing and advertising for a long time. Like I'm part of the problem, unfortunately. But I like to think I do it ethically to an extent. Like there's some tactics I won't lower myself to do, like that are hyper manipulation. But yeah, unfortunately, I'm part of the advertising problem.
Fascinating. Well, it's a science, and
Mhm.
it's very interesting, and to know what they know about us and our habits, it's remarkable. And Edward Bernays is credited with having associated smoking with women's lib and having introduced bacon to the breakfast table. Like these are culture shapers, and that's what Netflix is all about. So that's an important affiliation. And also, Edward Bernays is related to Sigmund Freud. So now you get into subconscious
Oh,
theories about subconscious manipulations, motivations, what really drives us. So yeah, I think they reverse engineered the human animal, and they built the entire media on or marketing field PR on this.
yeah, yeah, no, like one thing I can say about advertising and marketing is that every tiny little specific detail is 100% intentional to manipulate. Like, like make no mistake, like, and there's definitely some advertisers and marketing people that don't know what they're doing and they just, like put something out there because they think it looks nice or whatever the fuck. But, somebody that knows what they're doing, it's highly psychologically based. They are trying to compel an emotion out of you, to compel an action out of you, like every tiny little thing, everything down to like color, font. font size, like everything you see is highly, unfortunately, intentional to manipulate you into giving someone else money or driving an action, unfortunately.
And if that's true for commercials
Fact.
selling products, then it's got to be true for media organizations that are putting millions of dollars into these stories, which are I'm calling the
Of
stories
course.
mostly influence operations, and you can see the programming, and they know how we think, and they know how to manipulate fear. Like one of the first things after the lockdown started, Ivanka Trump did a video monologue where she was looking down into the camera. The lighting was low, and she spoke in a soft voice about entering into the brave new world. And I remember thinking the way that her face was positioned over the camera, looking up, it looked like the perspective of a baby in a crib listening to its mother's
Mm,
comforting words. And I think they do these things intentionally, where they infantilize us
yeah.
with their authority figures when they need to. They know how to
Yeah,
talk to us.
you are a million percent correct. Never think that any of that shit that goes out on a mass scale is unintentional. Like that's something I can confirm 100% because it happens on small scale. Like if it happens on small scale, I can guarantee you it happens on Ivanka Trump scale. Like definitely. Like it's all intentional. Every single teeny tiny aspect is intentional, unfortunately. So yes, it's easy for me to believe that is all bullshit.
Yep. Well, it's interesting that you work in marketing. I do marketing, or I have to survive. And yeah, the more I look into it, the more you see that there's a great deal of inside information, neurolinguistic programming, and it's not always ethical. I used to do telemarketing, and I got away from telemarketing
Mhm.
because I couldn't I really couldn't do what these companies I couldn't agree to do what they were doing, which is selling
Right.
garbage to people that's way overpriced and screwing them over in their contracts. I was in retentions, and I was the guy who would always give credits back to people who were ripped off, which was probably one of the reasons why they hated me. But yeah, that was one of my
Mhm.
last jobs in it because it is really easy to manipulate people in large numbers, and that's what the news media does, and they don't have a conscience about it. Like I get this Ukraine thing is just another eye opener where I get emails from almost every company I use. For example, someone ordered a coffee mug, and the company sends me an email. Do you want us to make the coffee mug blue and yellow to show solidarity with Ukraine? It's like, no, just leave the penguin on it and send the mug. Like, why would they even offer that?
Wow.
And
Wow.
and that's when I knew this is an agenda, and this is the same company that said, "Do you want to put, you know, they were basically one of the first ones to adopt all the new, COVID things." So I just saw them as, okay, you can kind of see they're going with the agenda of the month, and so I knew it was just another agenda, pre-planned.
Yeah.
I mean, look, one
That's
more thing here.
funny. That's
This is reminded me
crazy.
of something. The Thousand Oaks shooting, we had looked into it, and there were these basketball players who were wearing T-shirts with the names of the victims on their backs less than 48 hours after the event. And I contacted the T-shirt company, Sinbad Tees, and I'm like, hey, if I want to get a bunch of names on a shirt and have it sent to an event in LA, what's your turnaround time? And it was like a week. And I'm like,
Mhm.
maybe they have a time machine. But I just see foreplanning in the news media. They give it away if you pay attention, and that's just another example.
Yeah. Yeah, no,
But hey,
that's
I appreciate you calling because
exhausting.
I think if, well, not
Yeah.
if, because this is going to be the format, but the continuity of this think tank is essential because no matter what happens out there, we have a clear record of things, and I think we have a great collection of uh, thinkers, chatters, and callers to where uh, we don't really get triggered or fooled by any of these events. We're one of the first ones to always break these things down. So it's always going to be an oasis of sanity. So everyone here appreciates you calling in
Yeah.
and sharing your insights and perspectives on these things.
Well, it's nice to talk to you, Tim. It's been a while, and I appreciate having your stream to listen to. So I will let you finally get on with the show tonight.
No, this has been great. Great to catch up with you. And yeah, I see your posts in Discord. Always appreciate, everyone's posting things in there and it's always a blast. So yeah, thanks for calling. I think everyone here enjoyed your call and we hope to hear from you again.
All right, bye.
All right, everyone, that is Restless Bear. Let me go ahead and catch up on some of the comments here. Apocalypse Smile says, been gone for a while, enjoyed that. Yes, we're going to be doing our open phones nightly, and we have a daytime, usually in the mornings, a daytime live stream. All right, let's see here. Van Gogh says kids are wearing the masks at higher percentages. Agreed. Pippi Langstruff says aliens are yonder, in all caps. Okay. Okay, let's get back on. Free Just Man says VIP orders can get tees quick. Maybe, but my problem was this. I know you could get t-shirts quick, but my point was, in 48 hours, would you have time to do all those autopsies, to identify the victims, to contact the next of kin? Like, would you have the victims' names published on a t-shirt within 48 hours? Before the blood is really even dry, they're placing the orders. I don't think so. Like they're waiting, like, okay, it's 12 right now, but don't print it yet. There might be another death. He's in critical. Okay, 13. Print it. Like, no, it was just very questionable. And what's more, when you go into that whole thing, the Thousand Oaks event was 13 months after the Vegas event. Now, the Vegas event and the Thousand Oaks event shared 50 victims. So 50 people shot at in Vegas were shot at again at a different country music event. What are the odds? In a different state. So it wasn't like 50 locals. They go to a concert, they get shot at. Then about a year later, they come out again, they get shot at again. No. They went to a different state. From Vegas to California. 50 of the same people getting shot at. And if that doesn't raise any red flags, the same day that those 50 were being shot at in Thousand Oaks, there was a drill being conducted in the same city based on the Vegas shooting event. Free Just Man says the room temperature t-shirt challenge. Yeah, who can get them out first? All right, let's see what else we have here. I'm going through my voicemails. Okay, let's see. I think someone here says, okay, let's play this one. Looks like a nice criticism. And then we'll get back to the main topic.
Tim, I used to really be into your podcast, so to speak. But your shit got repetitive, but...
Okay, he's drinking. Let me...
And...
Okay, go on. I got it. He says, it feels too much like the MSM and that sucks.
The future dates that were supposed to be aligned with certain things happening never happened. I myself set a few dates that would have...
Okay, I'm
with
able to read his transcripts, but he says, I want to have faith or hope at the same time. I believe that at this point, it's too much. Everything will merge together. What the F? I'm just going to sit back and watch. Like I said, give me a beer.
But at the same time, I am.
Okay. Yeah, I got it. I will definitely make an effort to not be repetitive here. Next voicemail.
Or extend your service contract has a...
Okay, not that one. Okay, let's see. We have one more voicemail. Okay. All right. Andrew Munchkin says, wearing the face mask as space junk protection on your head with straps under the chin offers the same amount of protection against COVID when worn on the face. Interesting. Yeah, I can see that. Let's go ahead and touch back on this topic really quick. I brought this up earlier. So today's live stream was called Manson Heart-Shaped Glasses Kubrick Psyop. So the story is Evan Wood is she basically broke the story about February 1st, but with the documentary, she came out and named Marilyn Manson as her abuser from a few years ago. But now she's alleging that the music video, Heart-Shaped Glasses, contains an actual non-consenting sex act with Marilyn Manson. And so she's alleging, essentially, a rape on camera on this video. So now there's a petition to pull the video down. So a couple of things about the video. The video, Heart-Shaped Glasses, is based on a Stanley Kubrick work. That's one thing that stands out. Second, The event itself, the event is referenced in a later Marilyn Manson video 3 years later, where he reveals that the quote rape was a marketing scheme. In the song, it's about Persephone, and Persephone being kidnapped by Hades, taken into the underworld. But he specifically recites the lyrics "rape Persephone" multiple times in this second video. And in this second video, and I have it linked here. I'm not going to play it, but what he does is he actually plays a clip from Heart-Shaped Glasses, from the scene in question. So either it's a real thing and he bragged about it in a subsequent music video, or it's a psychological operation. It's a marketing scheme, and it's quote so phony, as he put in the lyrics referencing that scene. And there are a few other things about this particular individual, Evan Wood, her documentary. It's called Phoenix Rising. And the significance to this character, too, extends to the roles she's played. So, for example, she plays Dolores in Westworld, who confronts her abuser, the Man in Black, and eventually she defeats him, and she escapes, and she wakes up a lot of other AI spontaneously awakened beings in this Westworld environment. So she kind of leads this revolution. Well, that's what she's doing now with Project Phoenix, or the Phoenix Act, where she's finding all of these other people to rally behind her and rebel against the real world counterpart to Dolores's Man in Black, Marilyn Manson. So she's Dolores in Westworld. Well, in Lolita, and that's who she's playing in Heart-Shaped Glasses. Lolita's a fictional character. Her name is Dolores Hayes. So she plays Dolores in Westworld, confronting the Man in Black. She plays Dolores in the Heart-Shaped video Glasses with her real-life counterpart. So there's another connection here I'm finding with a lot of these, and you'll recognize a lot of these names. You got Dorothy, like Alice from Alice in Wonderland. There's a certain archetype here that we're tapping into. And something else I wanted to mention, you went to Epstein Island via Lolita Express. So here we're talking about a few things, but human trafficking is sort of a part of it. The abuse, the victim being Evan Wood. Well, Lolita Express was the plane that Clinton and others, and I think Trump was on it a few times. I mean, who wasn't on Lolita Express? I think even Stephen Hawking. But in Westworld, the people who want to go abuse the AI or the synths or whatever in Westworld, they take a train, kind of like the Lolita Express. I think that's kind of interesting. I also want to point out, when you get into the symbolism, this is all very interesting to me just because of how consistent it is. So you got, she's trapped in Westworld, WW. Prior to that, she was trapped in Marilyn Manson's world. Just invert the WW. And you'll find a lot of this type of 33s. Like she branded an M on her. He branded an E for Evan on him. So you'll find a lot of these ambigrams and palindromes built into the symbolism. Probably not a coincidence that the video, Heart-Shaped Glasses, is about to hit 33 million hits, I think is what it is. And this is something else. So I'm looking at Evan Wood's Instagram account, and she has a picture from Labyrinth, where you have the character Jessica in the Labyrinth confronting Jareth, the Goblin King, and she says, "You have no power over me." So this is a story about a young girl kidnapped by the Goblin King, and she's trapped in his labyrinth, and she has to, confront him in order to escape this thing, played by David Bowie. But the main thing is she's a prisoner in his little labyrinth, which this is very analogous to Dorothy confronting the Wizard of Oz, Dolores confronting the Man in Black. Very similar. These are parallel stories. It's a repeated theme. So again, here's the parallels, and this is again from her Instagram. She posted this character from Labyrinth. So Labyrinth equals the Westworld, the Matrix, the Truman Show, Free City if you watched Free Guy. Jareth the Goblin King is the same archetype as the Wizard of Oz, the Man in Black, or as Manson played. It's the same dynamic with Sarah, Dorothy, Alice, and Dolores. So you have the control dynamic master slave. You have Virgo, and this is what gets really interesting to me is Virgo is personified as Persephone, and at the equinox she's taken into the underworld for the fall. So Gabby Petito, if you remember, was typecast as Virgo in many of her pictures, and her body was found at the equinox as we entered into the fall. That's when Hades would have taken her, symbolized, I think, by the kidnapping by Brian Landry. But my point is, she disappears at the fall. So in this documentary, Phoenix Rising, about this Evan Wood, she says the first thing he said to her, she was looking over a balcony, he said, "Don't fall." And right after that, they started dating, and she took on the character, I think, of Persephone having been taken into the underworld by Hades, Pluto, by the Man in Black, by Brian Warner, Marilyn Manson. And the name Brian Warner, Brian Landry, very interesting correlation here, but my point being, she was characterized as a Persephone. Now, nowhere has she been called Persephone. This is a characterization on the world stage. So I was very surprised when I saw the video, the Marilyn Manson video called Overneath the Path of Misery, where in this video he references the heart-shaped glasses video, and he says, rape Persephone, rape Persephone. It's all just a marketing scheme. And again, it's a direct reference to the other video calling it a marketing scheme. We went over a lot of the symbolism in that and others in a previous upload today. Manson, heart-shaped glasses, Kubrick psyop. And the Kubrick connection here. Again, Lolita, Kubrick production. And I pointed this out earlier, and it kind of, I should probably repeat this once more. Manson's video, Coma White, was delayed. Its release on MTV was delayed because it was so proximal to the death of JFK Jr. And the video featured Manson playing JFK. And he said the video was based on an unproduced script about how there were actually two Jesuses, Jesus Christ and JFK. And that now we're waiting for a third savior. Well, that's the QAnon story. And again, if you follow the whole Kubrick QAnon connection here, there's quite a lot to unpack there. However, the main thing is this narrative of the Kennedys somehow being the return of Christ. That's something that the QAnoners picked up, but I had not found any mention of it outside of a Miles Mathis article from 2009. Maybe that was one. But really, Manson obviously has some kind of insider script on this thing. And then here's another connection to Persephone you might find interesting. So he was over there at the Dawn Day 2 event, the Pluto Return Day. Again, it's Pluto is Hades. Hades kidnaps Persephone. And it was on that day, 222, that she releases the trailer for her documentary. So what this tells me is that this is a premeditated controversy. Like they released this controversy. It's a world stage drama. So again, Dolores in Westworld, Dolores in heart-shaped glasses. Dolores is a Persephone-like figure, a prisoner to the Man in Black. Just like Dorothy, prisoner to the Wizard of Oz. So it's a, again, reoccurring theme, just like Sarah and the movie Labyrinth. Let me go through some comments, make sure I haven't missed anything. All right, let's see here. Wow, I missed quite a bit. Give me just a moment to get my scroll on. Finbar says, love the call. Hey ho, Restless Bear. Clockwork 113 says, great questions, great call. Portal Complex says, Carver can do an autopsy over a Zoom conference. Oh yeah, Dr. Carver. Speaking of world stage names, he's one of my favorites. Dr. Carver does autopsies. Linda Curtis says 13 is the moon cycle. Oh, you know, when you look into the Evan Wood's back, her IMDb, she did a movie called 13, which is very symbolic. It has to do with the goddess Virgo. Not a coincidence that Marilyn Manson recognized her from the movie 13, and that she releases her documentary when she's 33. Free Just Man said the voicemailer was drunker than Restless Bear. Yeah, he tried to get it out. Look, I'm trying not to be repetitive. I don't know if I am repetitive. The world stage is repetitive. They're repeating 1969. They're repeating 1968. They're basically recycling narratives from the 60s right now. What isn't being repeated right now? So I'm not being repetitive. But if you feel like we're being repetitive, you're welcome to call in and change the subject. Okay, let us continue. Rich Flat says Dr. Carver died a few years ago. No, he didn't. Well, he might have died, but I believe he came back in 2020 as Dr. Was it Redfield? Yeah, this is kind of a side note, but Dr. Carver from the Sandy Hook group came back as Dr. Redfield, the CDC director. And, by the way, Gabby Petito, speaking of, she was in a post-Sandy Hook music video. Lean Dion says, real as shit online. And it will continue to be so. I mean, we are always reaching out to others who are, similarly predisposed to not trust the media. And I am building a network, the Conspiratainment Radio Network, which you'll hear more about as we go. It's in its very, very early stages. Okay, let's continue. We're talking about this Persephone thing. Okay, so I brought this up in Discord and about how Dolores is the name of Lolita, or the character in Lolita, and how she plays Dolores, which is very similar to Dorothy. Same dynamics. And then I brought up Sarah in Labyrinth. Same dynamic. And of course, her antagonist is David Bowie, or the Goblin King. And another thing here, in The Truman Show, his main antagonist is Ed Harris, playing Christoph, the guy who built The Truman Show, put him into this matrix that he had to overcome this guy. Well, Ed Harris is the guy who plays the Man in Black in Westworld. Okay, so there's a few other things here. Cubstar posted this in Discord. In Westworld, there's a maze. There's actually a labyrinth, a map that she has to figure out, how to navigate in order to, I guess, achieve consciousness. It's an interesting reoccurring symbol throughout the whole Westworld thing. So the labyrinth connection there, just another thing that correlates. It shows you we're looking at the same archetypes. So it's called the maze. So the Man in Black convinced himself. Let me see if I can, let me just scoot forward on this one. Here we go. Yeah, the maze is for Dolores, and it represents her path to consciousness. Again, one other thing with Dolores, the blue dress, just like Dorothy. Okay. Again, appreciate the phone calls, and if you have anything to add to any of these things, you can always drop the information on a voicemail. If we're not live, you can put it in Discord. I would recommend you listen to what we discussed earlier if you're not familiar with this present controversy with Marilyn Manson and this Evan Wood. And we've been following it because I've been following Manson since he started associating with Kanye West. Another very interesting story. I just think that what we're seeing is the death of the West being symbolically played out. We're seeing a sort of a meta drama where Kanye West's world is burning. And in Westworld, it's destroyed when the robot or the AI rebellion is led by Evan Wood's character Dolores. So it's kind of like a reset. They shut it down. It's kind of a revolution. And that's kind of what we're seeing. That's the big story here. I think that's what this whole Kraken thing has been about. I believe that we're looking at some big rift. And that's what it represents. So anyway, we'll get back to this and get it into other contexts. Like, for example, one of the other main themes about Westworld has been the white church, this chapel, and how it correlates to the chapel that Kanye West burned at Donde 2. And it actually has a lot of interesting connections to the Rust world story, or the Rust story, with Alec Baldwin here in New Mexico shooting Helena Hutchins, age 42, shooting her in that chapel. And again, Rust is a Western. A lot of stuff here suggesting that we're looking at this takedown of the West, something that Putin has been talking about lately as well. Lean Dion says the man in black seeks the maze. He's also obsessed with it. Yeah, so many overlapping symbols here. All right, let me see. I'm going through my notes. Again, I brought this up earlier today. Daily Beast had mentioned how shockingly prescient Netflix is with this Servant of the People Zelensky movie. And they're saying, oh, it's rare that art follows life like this. Like, obviously, they're not paying attention. All right. Yes, Blue Origin's 20th flight, New Shepard, is shifted to Tuesday, March 29th. So Pete Davidson will no longer be joining the crew. So he canceled it. And there has been a little bit of talk that he might be meeting up with Kanye. We'll see. Now here's a couple of other things. Manson was engaged to Rose McGowan. Now she was pretty big with the Me Too thing and outing Harvey Weinstein. So it ties in some other characters here. So for example, when the Harvey Weinstein scandal broke, it was Marilyn Manson's ex-fiancée who spoke out the loudest, and she was gathering her Rose Army. So this is kind of similar. The Rose Army demanding justice for herself and Weinstein's other victims. It's very similar to what Evan Wood is doing right now. But anyway, Corey Feldman claims that, see, Corey Feldman did this thing a little while ago. It was just so cringe. Corey's Angels, where he's got these strippers or dancers living with him, and they're backup dancers for his horrible performance. I don't want to play it. Let me go ahead and play it. I watched it, just sheer cringe entertainment value, a few times. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Like, I don't recommend it. It's called Ascension Millennium by Corey Feldman. I'm going to mute it. I don't know what to make of it. I mean, I guess if you have a lot of money, you can do anything. You can buy a lot of yes men and yes women, and so your judgment's never questioned. But he puts out this music video, and he's got these lingerie-clad, he calls them Corey's Angels. So the interesting thing is Corey's Angels kind of reminds me of, Charlie's Angels, Charlie Manson. How he has these backup dancers or whatever, but he calls them his angels. Well, it turns out that his backup dancer angels that he has living with him, he says he's just helping them, whatever that means. But apparently these were all spies from Marilyn Manson. So you got Corey's angels are actually Charlie's angels. Or actually Manson's angels. Kind of probably a disconcerting thing to find out, that you've actually invited into your house people who are just spying on you 24/7. But yeah, that has come out as well. All right, let us continue. Salty says, why does he try so hard to be Michael Jackson? Right. Speaking of, Michael Jackson is believed to be on Team Trump, and that he's coming back with JFK, John Denver, and Princess Diana to save the children, who won't be children if they wait much longer. It's going to be save the teenagers who've been raised in NWO daycares. Like, are they going to want to be saved by a bunch of MAGAs at the end of the day? I kind of don't think so. Let's see here. Look at this. Space Force. This is posted, I believe, by Lean Dion. Space Force is full of predictive programming. The entire base is being hacked by Russians. Their power is cut. Their computers are disabled by hackers. One of their satellites is taken out of orbit. The last episode of Season 2, Russia hacks Space Force and controls their satellite. And at the end, they spot a big asteroid. Okay. This is another story that's been making the rounds. It's like the caller, Restless Bear, said, are there any real QAnoners, or is this just a bunch of government LARPers or people can this be real? So the new theory among QAnoners, according to the mainstream media, is that Trump's bizarre pronunciation of China, he calls it China or China. He always pauses between, and he has this very peculiar. Well, anyway. They think this entire time he's referring to a place in Ukraine. And that's where the bioweapon has actually come from. So, yeah, they've taken decoding Trump's every single utterance to a whole new level. They've done this with tweets. You know, if you didn't follow this, before Trump was deleted on Twitter, they would take his every tweet and cross-reference it with a Q drop based on the timestamp. And then they'd do a little numerology, a little Kabbalah, and boom, a revelation. All right. Again, all chatters, appreciate you. And everyone here who supports the channel, again, this wouldn't be here. And we wouldn't be able to maintain this with the level of opposition. And it wouldn't be as fun if we didn't have as many people wanting this to exist. And so it's going to continue to exist. I have a 30-year plan. I don't plan on stopping. I'm just saying I have a 30-year plan. It makes a lot more sense to do a 30-year thing than a 5-year. And then also it puts things into context. So if you're someone who doesn't like the channel, if you're a troll or something, you're just going to have to live with the realization that we will be here long after you've retired. Again, just a heads up, Amazon moved 1,800 employees out of downtown Seattle due to a, quote, crime wave. So it makes me think, maybe they're getting ready for some kind of psyop. Maybe this will be the Kraken. Maybe it'll be a tsunami, some kind of a wave, maybe some kind of a EMP burst. But something's going to happen in Seattle, and they had to make some room to stage the event. That's my take on it right now. Let's see, I got a message here from Benton. Did you see DMZ? It's about a new civil war. I started watching it, and it's definitely, if you, like Restless Bear was asking, talking about the future. If you want to know what the future is, watch DMZ. Or at least that's what they want it to be. I think it's always a question of how much they can get reality to match their fantasy. Something else, I've been saying that if aliens do arrive, it wouldn't be unifying, despite what Ronald Reagan had said. If a bunch of aliens arrived, it's going to be partisan. The left will join the aliens because these are the technological saviors. It's their angels. The right will see them as demons. And they'll say, it'll be a schism. Just like COVID. You would think, okay, imagine instead of a virus, if they were aliens. You think we would have united? No, you could see how split we were. That didn't unite us. But anyway, the idea of world unifying aliens, no way. So Mr. Most Woke had a comment on this point. He said, when Europeans, white aliens, arose in the New World, it did not unite the Indians. The various tribes aligned with the new white aliens to help them defeat their enemies. So, yeah, I don't think that there would be anything unifying about it. Is anything even unifying? All right, everyone, this has been great. I think I have a couple more things that I should probably bring up. We're talking about death fakers, and I mentioned Princess Diana. Well, it turns out, and by the way, Princess Diana, goddess name, crashed into the 13th pole or pillar under the bridge. Obviously a psyop. Her photographer, though, said that she had plastic dummy hair. So that hair you saw on her head, yeah, it's just stick-on. It's not even real. And what's more, I don't think she's dead. I don't think the QAnoners are right about it, though. She's not going to come back as Princess Di. Princess Di never left. In fact, she just took off the plastic dummy hair wig and married Elton John. Look at David Furnish. And note the nose. It's very distinct. David Furnish, a.k.a. Princess Diana. Candle in the wind. Death faker. Lean Dion says Bezos and the Kraken on the Inside Job. I have that clip where on Inside Job, a Netflix series, again, Netflix is essentially it's like a scrying mirror. So if you want to know what's going on in the future, well, in Netflix, a Kraken actually swallows up Jeff Bezos, who's on his mega yacht. The symbol of the mega yacht, that's the Titanic. That's the West. That's the Tower of Babel. The Kraken taking it down, super symbolic. Again, Bezos, richest man in the world, pokes his head into space. All right, there are so many other things I want to talk about here. Like, for example, I was looking into a horrible TV show, Big Bang Theory. I used to watch it on my lunch breaks when I worked at a Walmart. Everybody loved it. But there was an episode where Howard's in space, And I remember watching this show here and there. It's cringe-ertainment, so it's not that bad. But anyway, there's this article here about how Big Bang Theory were able to fake being in the ISS. And it's kind of funny when you think about it, because it's talking about all the technologies that you would need, all the different props and the setup you would need to make it happen and to make it look real. And it's basically what they really do. It's not too bad. I mean, this description, I think we're looking at some real backstage stuff and they don't even know. So it says, with only 20 feet or 6 meters of space station to work with, they had visual effects supervisors, cinematographers, and they set up the unique camera angles to create more space than there actually was. Anyway, it goes on to the different ways that they're able to maneuver the camera and create this illusion. And they had to run it by some of these astronauts. Mike Massimo was very impressed. They had to make it authentic for this episode. But it's just kind of funny how they kind of blindly stumble into the truth sometimes. Like, the word is fakeable. The word is fakeable. I've introduced this into the auto hoaxer lexicon. You have to ask yourself, or ask somebody who believes what they see on TV. Is it at least fakeable? If they're not willing to at least meet you halfway and say it's fakeable, then they're claiming ignorance about the technologies available in media wizardry today. Let me play a clip here. This is Laura Logan talking about President Zelensky's connection to the occult and how he was selected, not elected.
Job as a journalist is to try to understand what is the truth here. I don't like being lied to. And we're being lied to on an epic scale. When we're told your only choice is you have to be 100% with Zelensky, who's a puppet, who you can find on the internet in black stilettos and leather pants, you know, with shirtless, doing a spoof Dancing with the Stars kind of entertainment video. That's a mock of a Ukrainian group that does this kind of satanic occult type of music video. And I mean, Zelensky was selected, like so many of us.
So there you have it. This is the main part. She's talking about how he was selected, not elected, directly lifted from David Icke. I mean, this is an interesting point.
Zelensky was selected, like so many of our leaders. And honestly, with big tech and with election fraud these days, we don't know how many leaders all around the world have been selected for us and weren't actually voted in. But what we do know is that there are increasing problems with technology and the digitized.
Okay, there you have it. Laura Logan. Nice little rant there. Making the rounds. All right, let's see. Yeah, I'll be checking Discord. And look, if you want to join the Discord, go to infiniteplane.radio. $2 a month. If you don't pay, you're not going to get kicked out. There's almost 500 people there. And it's a fire hose of basically Metascript deconstruction. Metascript breakdown, real-time propaganda analysis. So we're not falling for their spells. We're not taking sides. It's one of the most, I would say, well, one of the top skeptics think tanks out there. So, you know, I highly recommend you join. Again, it's only a couple dollars a month, and the memes are free. All right, this has been great. Let me go ahead and, again, say thanks to everyone who helped make this happen. Oh, one more thing. How many times have I correlated the falling of the space station and the dissolution of the agreement above with the burning or the falling of the Tower of Babel? How Genesis 11:9 about the scattering of the tower, about 119, the number being used with stuff falling from the sky. Well, in Russia, they burn a mock Tower of Babel. I just want to put this on the screen really quick. And also, look at that Tower of Babel and then compare it to the Helix building, the Amazon headquarters. Again, the symbol here. This is all the same symbol. The Tower of Babel, the Titanic, the way that they represent this, the West itself, but it's basically symbolic of the Tower of Babel. And so you have this burning, probably not a coincidence. Anyway, this has been great. Appreciate the calls and all the commenters. We'll be back tomorrow. I'm going to make up for lost time this week, so we'll be live all weekend. I'm working on a series of 10-minute short vids. I think you'll like it. The series is called Metascript Decodes. Anyway, this is the Auto Hoaxer Revolution by MVP. See you all tomorrow.
society. Sometimes there's a lot of penguin usage, right? They actually know how to do spiritual warfare online. They're good at it. They're trained in it.
IPS is just sharing the truth.
Yeah, it's back to the Infinite Plane Society.
The auto-hoaxer revolution.
Auto-hoaxer.
The auto-hoaxer revolution.
Auto-hoaxer.
The auto-hoaxer revolution.
We've taken over auto-hoax. The term auto-hoaxer was meant to attack people who jump to conclusions too fast. Until we realized that, no, actually, we were right the whole time to do it this way.
The auto-hoaxer revolution.
Auto-hoaxing really has to do with a very tight grasp on the facts of reality. Auto-hoaxing is based on logic, and automatically believing what you see from your media sources is actually the opposite of logic.
The auto-hoaxer revolution.
Auto-hoaxer. Auto-hoaxer.
The auto-hoaxer revolution.
Auto-hoaxer. Auto-hoaxer.
The auto-hoaxer revolution.
Legitimate auto-hoaxing is the only legitimate threat to the mainstream stranglehold over mass perception. The auto-hoax meme, the auto-hoax concept needs to be mainstreamed, and I think more than ever people will understand it when it's explained properly.